So he's right behind that doe in the back. There he is. See him now? Yeah. We were walking back to the truck, and I pulled off to the side here to check this little small bean field. We saw some does, and then I saw some antlers rise up above the hill, and it's a really good buck in there, but he was coming our direction, and I kind of panicked and jumped out of the way. And probably should have just held our ground and got some really good footage of him, but I didn't want to get caught out in the open, but the doe saw me, and they ran and left. But I'm not going to hunt him. Hopefully nobody else does. Hopefully that deer makes it, because next year that deer could be, I mean, he's probably pushing 170s right now. He could be easily 190s or bigger next year if nobody messes with him. So that's what you do when you have these trade-offs where you pass up bucks and then you hope for the best. And sometimes they make it and you've got an exciting deer to hunt, and sometimes they don't and you kick yourself for not shooting them. But I'm not going to hunt that buck. I'll give him a chance to see how big he'll get. Amid a landscape of orange and red, with temperatures holding 5 to 10 degrees below the norm, most of our teams were in the field this past week. It was classic October. The bucks seemed to enjoy these high-pressure Indian summer days just as much as we did, showing more than typical levels of daylight activity. This fueled our optimism and kept us ever watchful on long sits. This past week also marked the start of morning hunting for most of our team. It is time to tell the stories of camel-clad men chasing giant bucks. Let's start in Kentucky. Josh Honeycutt fell off our radar after the early season. That is not because he has been couch-bound. Josh has been hunting several days each week, working hard to find back at least one of his several mature shooters. It has been a struggle that has left the young bow hunter discouraged and looking for options. With a gun in hand, Josh hoped to even the odds during the early muzzleloader season. But his struggles continued. Plenty of deer, just no mature bucks. Things will no doubt pick up as we head into the rut, so let's not forget about Josh Honeycutt. He is still out there putting in the time and staying focused. Surely he will surface with a solid buck very soon. Back in eastern Iowa, Jared Mills has fared better. If you remember, Jared is hunting a mystery buck. He can't show any photos or video of the deer because of an agreement he made with his neighbor. At least not until one of them kills the buck. But that is not to say that Jared doesn't have both photos and video. He encountered the 320-inch buck twice during the past week. Well, maybe he's not 320 inches, but hey, I always say, dream big. One encounter came at just 12 yards. Given that he has 2 buck tags, Jared has also been hunting other properties.
Alright, here we go. It's October 20th. Grant and I are settled in. This is my very first hunt on Mike and I's farm this year, so I'm excited to be on this property. There's a couple target bucks, and they've been showing like they're starting to become a little more active in the last week or so. So love that layer of eyes on one of them. We're in a spot where we can see a lot. The other cool part about tonight is that Grant behind the camera just got his Iowa residency, so he has his bow with him tonight. There's a couple targets on this farm, at least one for sure, that we'd like to get him on, so double the chances of hopefully shooting a buck tonight. That 4-year-old. It's been a heck of a morning. October 25th, bunch of grunts and snort-wheezes and chasing. It's been a lot of fun. This is really the first morning that we've hunted actually targeting bucks. We came into this little pinch on Mike and I's farm targeting merino and girly this morning. We've basically seen everything but a mature buck.
The action has been steady and the bucks have been solid, just not quite old enough. Hunting 150 miles to the west of Jared in southern Iowa, Owen Riegler has also been very active. The highlight of his week was pulling a card and finding an old familiar buck on it, one he calls Digits.
Well, we just got nestled in here. It's about 4:45 right now. Oh, we got another buck on the list too. Last year when I was hunting that crabs buck, there was a buck that we had a couple encounters with. He's called Digits. That buck just showed back up here. He always ruts on me and he always summers on the neighbors, but he's like 8 years old and he's even bigger this year. It's crazy to see what he's done from year to year on growth. He's had a couple years where he was down, and then a good year last year, and then now even bigger this year. So we got all kinds of food around us. We got a clover trail right here. I'm hoping they come down. Beans on the other side of that by the redneck blind. We got a nice little pinch point right here. And that Digits buck, he's been known to bed in that next draw over. And if so, I like our odds of getting him to come through here, so we'll just have to see if he's in here today, but we should be in for a pretty good sit once this wind calms down.
Owen has several mature bucks on the farms he hunts, and his focus has been almost entirely on 3 of them. A buck he calls Wolverine, one he calls Picket Fence because of its multi-tined rack, and Digits. With these 3 in mind, Owen has been steadily increasing the pressure and has just begun hunting mornings. We will keep a close eye on Owen's quest. This past week was very good to me. On Wednesday, the hourly forecast called for shifting winds. I decided to stay away from the spots where my known targets were living and headed to a blind where I could control my scent better. I was hunting a spot I know very well, but I was shocked to see a buck I never expected. This afternoon we were planning on going after old One Eye, but the forecast that we looked at 2 different wind forecasts, the hourly forecasts. One was southwest to west to northwest, the other one was south, southeast to west to northwest, and then, I don't know, one of them had north in there too, so obviously it wasn't going to work. So we're going to go in and sit in a blind this evening in a spot that historically it's been a really good spot. I've seen and killed a lot of good bucks back here. I haven't had a buck on camera this year back in here that I wanted to hunt, but that's not to say that a surprise buck couldn't pop out. I mean, if I was going to pick a spot for a surprise buck, this would be one of them. So we're going to grab our stuff and head back to the blind. It's kind of fun to just kick back and not have any real agenda, just relax and see what comes out this evening. Got about 45 minutes left, maybe a little bit more than that. And there is a doe and 2 fawns that are working their way in from the north. And I shot 2 does here the last time I was in here, but I would be tempted, if she gives me a good shot, to try to take this doe. We had a small buck and a bunch of turkeys out in front earlier, but that's been it so far. Hopefully we'll have a buck pop out here. There's plenty of food. This is a big and beastie patch, and there's a lot of it left. So there should be more deer popping out here, I would think, before the evening's over. that buck from last year, I think. Holy crap, yep it is. That's that same buck from last year. We called him Bruiser in the Beans last year. With a buck. I'm gonna have to make a decision if he comes out in front. If you got enough light. That was a good hit, wasn't it? Oh gosh. We were talking about a surprise buck, and this would be the spot for him, and that was a surprise buck. Wow. What a deer. That thing is awesome. The brows on that thing had to have been 8 or 10 inches long. Oh man, I'm shaking now. I don't shake very often, but we had a pretty good standoff there. I think Drake is shaking too. That standoff lasted about 5 minutes, about 20 yards away. I think the hit was good. I kind of had to stand up a little bit. He was so close to the blind that I had to get a little bit out of position just so I could, wouldn't hit the window. But no, I think that deer's dead. We'll try to gain a little composure here and then go over and take a look at him. But man, what a deer. Whew. I'm sure glad that we came to this spot tonight. Yeah, that's awesome. I can't believe it. I know what deer that is too. I recognized him fairly early on. We filmed that deer in the next field to the south last year on, I think it was like November 9th or 10th. And he looked big then, but he looks a lot bigger now. Dang, who'd have thought? The 23rd of October. What a buck. Dang. I gotta sit there. Wasn't that something? So there's some blood right down here. So this is where he was kind of stumbling around, right? Oh, there he is right there. Oh gosh, look at that thing. Oh, look at the size of that thing. Oh man, look at that thing. Look at that beam. The beam has got to be 28 inches long. Look at that thing. Boy, that was the surprise buck. We'll mark that one down. If anybody ever says, what is a surprise buck? We'll have a picture of this deer, because wow, what a deer. Look at that thing. We had no idea that he was back here. This was one of the bucks that I have a little bit of history with this deer from last year, but not very much. And that's what makes him such a surprise and what makes this hunt so much fun. I think there's something about just getting lucky and killing a deer that you didn't really know was there that is so appealing. I mean, I think I have more fun shooting this deer under these circumstances than if I'd been hunting him all season long. It's pretty cool, really cool, you know, to have that much luck fall right into your lap. And I think it evens out over time. You know, we get to feeling sorry for ourselves sometimes, you know, when we have a bad year or a bad shot or something like that. But then, you know, as long as you stick with it and keep doing your best, you know, eventually luck swings back around your way, and it definitely swung back around my way tonight. I mean, what an awesome deer. I mean, he's everything you could possibly want. That takes us through the middle of the week, but the action didn't stop there for our teams. When we left Josh Sparks a week ago, he was after a beautiful 10-pointer on a piece of public land. Josh got there first and almost made the most of it with 2 close encounters, but other hunters have also been hitting that area during the past week. The buck has disappeared, and Josh has moved his efforts to a different tract. He decided on a piece that reflects the property he grew up hunting. Lots of timber with creeks running through it. Using these creeks for access, Josh found a good spot where he encountered a very solid 3-year-old this past Friday.
See him? I don't know. It's a good buck. It looks young. I see her. Yeah, he's a young buck. Well, that almost just worked out. That was an awesome encounter. Max looked up in the back of that field, and so he got deer coming. And it was a buck dogging a doe. Oh, man. At first I thought he was one that wanted to shoot. And don't get me wrong, he was a beautiful deer. I just do think he was only 3. I'm pretty certain he was only 3. And I've set my goal as something mature, and I'm going to stick to that. I mean, he was just a beautiful, framey, long beams, just a little spindly. And we still got an hour and a half left. I've got to believe there's an older deer in this area somewhere. Hopefully he's behind those 2, because that might have been the first hot doe in this area. Who knows?
Leaving all his gear in the tree that evening, he and Max returned Saturday morning when they had an encounter with their second shooter of the season.
Let's see if I can grab back behind us. That is a stud, dude. I don't know if you can't see anything in here. He's definitely he's listening to see if he hears anything. Here he comes. What? Is he? Yeah, he is, huh? What a tank of a deer right there. I told Max, watch back there. Maybe another deer coming. Then he said another deer stepping out, and right away I knew it was a shooter. He was angled to our south, and I figured I'd give him a couple grunts. When I was grunting behind me, just bent it backwards. And it kind of got his attention, but he just kept walking. And so I did a Snort-Wheeze down in here, and that definitely turned him. And he ended up coming back towards our way. And I thought he was coming, I really did. But what a stud, man. My goodness. I'm freezing on top of the fact that, I mean, we were holding it together pretty good. I thought we were about to do it. What an awesome, awesome encounter. Truly love Iowa.
This is now the spot where Josh intends to focus his efforts until he either tags a buck, burns the spot out, or starts to run into other hunters. Hunting public land successfully is a game of elimination. Little by little, your best spots get messed up, either by you or someone else, and you move on to the next one. Josh hopes he doesn't have to leave this spot anytime soon. This finally brings us to Mike Reed. Hunting several farms, some of which he owns and some he only manages, Mike has narrowed his list of targets down to just 3 bucks that show the most promise. We will bring you much more on Mike's story next week as he begins his quest for these great bucks. Late October cold fronts are magic. We have one coming in just 2 days. In fact, there is even snow in the forecast for much of the Midwest. With these cold temperatures, the bucks will be aggressively pushing their pre-rut agenda on an audience of does that aren't ready for their advances. The dynamic this oil and water relationship sets up in the coming week should be awesome to watch. Anyone with a tag and a couple of days of vacation needs to be in a tree. That's where we're going to be, hunting our best bucks during what could well end up being the best 3 days of the season. These stories and more will continue to unfold right here every week. We appreciate you joining us on this journey. We will see you right back here again next week for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail, and remember to always dream big.
Hey y'all, thanks for watching the best of Midwest Whitetail. I put a link down here below to see more of this great content, plus other shows on Realtree 365. Thanks again for watching.
He was 5 yards. Dude, he just rolled over on his belly. That's the first buck of the season right there. And, that's a big, solid, mature buck. That rush never gets old.
This past week, our hunting efforts have met with very limited success. Like a truck sliding sideways up a muddy hill, we just couldn't get any traction. The mature bucks were tied down with does, and the does were deep in hiding. Seemingly nothing moved. We tried the timber ridges, nothing. We tried the feeding areas, only fawns. A number of our team members took the week off, knowing that better days were ahead. But Collins Marine had a great hunt in the very middle of this dead stretch. Collins is a longtime friend of Josh Sparks. The two constantly share information and stand locations. They love filming each other and look forward to any opportunity to spend time together in the tree. In fact, Collins played a key role in helping Josh find great spots on public land this year. But it was not Josh who was filming Collins on the evening of November 15th on this eastern Iowa bow hunt. It was their mutual friend, Caleb Greiner.
It is November 15th, and Caleb and I are back down on his home farm. We're back in here now where we actually had an encounter last week with a really wide 10-point. We're still trying to figure out if we're going to shoot that deer or not. It'll be a game time decision, but we actually put the stock on him right back here behind us, and this is just a really good area. Transition, there's 3 big bedding areas, and we're kind of right in the middle of all 3 of them, so hopefully we can have some deer come cruising through here this afternoon and maybe get our first buck on the ground for the year. So stick with us. It should be a pretty fun night.
scrape. He's gonna come in. I'm all over him, don't even ask. He's gonna be at 30 yards. God, that's a big 9 for last. I know. God. Buddy, he's gonna go down right there. You're down for the line.
He was 5 yards.
I can smell him, dude.
Dude, he just rolled over on his belly. All right, guys. So we called him the Big 9 last year. Caleb and Josh actually were in here hunting this deer in this draw last year. We have not seen this deer all year, and he just came into 5 yards at the base of the tree. We just smoked a giant, dude. We're gonna go ahead and call the boys, let them know what happened, and probably wait for them to get here before we go walking up on them. Get a few things done here in the tree. I mean, we're gonna sit till dark because Caleb, he's got a tag still, so there's a lot of mature deer in the area, so we'll see. We might get another crack at one.
He's a 4-year-old dude.
All right, just had Shala and Josh. They came and met us. Just got out of the stand. We're actually standing right where I shot the deer. Half the arrow was here, so we're gonna go ahead and pick up the blood trail just for fun and follow it right to him. There he is.
That's insane. There's a lot of history with that deer. Do you know whose dad that deer is? Josh.
Guess who found the shed to this last year? Josh.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I forgot we found that, didn't
Dude, that's so cool.
Look how much he's been fighting.
All right, guys, it's the next morning here, and thought we'd get the buck out in some better light, give you guys a better look at him, and kind of just a little story with this deer. You know, this is a deer that we believe to be 5 or 6.5 possibly, and actually this is the first buck that showed up on camera this year. Looking back, we only had one set of pictures of him in velvet, and we really didn't see him much after that, and luck was on our side last night when we finally got our eyes on him. And knowing that, I mean, right when we saw him, we both could tell it was a Big 9, and we knew he was always running that area, so calling yesterday was kind of the key to that hunt. You know, he came in and hit that fence line, and we thought he was gonna go check the bedding area to our north. So Caleb threw a Snort-Wheeze at him, and that just got his attention right away. And he worked that scrape, like I said last night, and ended up coming into about 7 yards and gave me a shot. But I mean, last night, another funny thing last night, we actually had an encounter with another stud 4-year-old right after I killed this deer. He came into about 15 yards. Ultimately, we gave him the pass because I think that deer is gonna grow up to be something special if he can get one more year on him. But I mean, it's an awesome way to cap off my season. You know, me and Caleb have been hunting hard since October, getting out as much as we can. Had some great encounters. I actually had a really good encounter on November 3rd. Had a buck we call the Big 10 on a different property. Unfortunately, I didn't hit him that night. I missed, shot right over his back. But looking back, I'm kind of glad that happened because this is a deer that we've been after for the last couple of years. Had a lot of history with him.
big old mature buck, something that we've been looking for all season. And I mean, what a season to end, or for me, what a way to end my bow season. You know, me and Caleb, it's hard to beat shooting a deer in a stand with one of your buddies. We don't get to do it often, so when it happens, it's super special. And I mean, November 15th, it's gonna be one we remember for a long time.
Every week I've sounded like a broken record as I updated the Josh Honeycutt story. His Kentucky season has been a tour of misery, as all the bucks he watched during the summer either moved off or died from EHD. Finally this week I get to offer something positive. Josh spent the opening weekend of the Missouri rifle season with friends at their annual hunting camp.
All right, so we're back in for the afternoon sit. Hunted this morning. This was day 2 in Missouri. Didn't see but 2 small bucks this morning. There's several good bucks in this area. We made the switch. We were in a stand this morning, came to a blind this afternoon, but it's just one of those things where just really didn't see a lot of action, and we were already kind of right there between 2 bedding areas, so we decided to make the move to food this afternoon on the standing bean field right here. And it's a pretty solid spot. We've got a lot of native grasses behind us, and then a pretty solid stand of beans here, and you could tell that the deer have been hammering these beans. We have a front that's moving through this afternoon, should get the deer up on their feet. It's not a big front, it's not going to really affect us temperature-wise, but there is some rain coming, so that should get the bucks up on their feet. We're going to settle in. Hopefully we see a big deer this afternoon. So we just killed one. That's the first buck of the season right there. And that's a big, solid, mature buck. Big 5.5-year-old deer right there. And one of them that we were in here looking for. Just a great deer. But I can't handle it, man. I can't handle it because I've been on a dry spell. This has been the toughest season of my life, literally. At least the last 8 to 9 years anyway. But man, we finally hopefully broke the ice there. I did not see the deer go down, but I saw blood coming out of him as soon as I hit him, so hopefully that deer didn't make it very far. I marked where he went last. But man, that was the first deer of the afternoon. That rush never gets old. Had to make this trip to Missouri to hunt with some of my best friends, and just could not be more pleased to take a big-bodied mature deer like that.
Look at the body on that thing.
It's a mature deer.
That's an old deer there, dude. I had that deer last year. He was a straight 8. Yeah. Huge body, had like a goiter on the front of him.
Look how big his neck is.
Oh yeah.
He has a pink neck.
Literally.
All right, so we've had a great hunt camp. This is the second day of the hunt, and we came up here to Indian Hill, hunting here at the Winchester camp, and it's just been an absolute blast. We got a bunch of people in camp. We're having fun, and this right here is a brute of a deer. Probably the biggest bodied deer that I've ever killed. Heavy deer, thick neck. He's obviously in full rut, but just an ultra mature deer, and couldn't be happier to have tagged this buck this afternoon.
For many, deer hunting is part of a rich tradition that revolves around spending quality time with friends and family. The hunt itself becomes secondary to the camp life and the camaraderie. But for Josh Honeycutt, this year the hunt was also a season changer. Now it is time to catch up with our other team members. After finding out on the 12th that his big buck was dead, shot by a neighbor, Jared Mills took 10 days off, skipping the rut's lull and getting work done. His first hunt back in the stand was November 22nd, when we found him after another great buck. This one a giant he had trail camera photos of on one of his permission farms. After seeing the buck and realizing he was out of the game, Jared headed back to the same field the next evening, setting up 300 yards closer to where the buck came out the day before. You can keep up with Jared's hunt for this great buck by tuning into our daily video blogs, either on the Midwest Whitetail daily YouTube page or on the MidwestWhitetail.com website. As it was to most of us, the rut's lull was not kind to Mike Reed as he hunted the urban zone near his eastern Iowa home. During this past week, Mike has had minimal action and no mature buck sightings. We left Josh Sparks planning to change gears and film and hunt with his friend Caleb Greiner. Now that Collins Marine is tagged out, Caleb is ready to hunt. He and Josh plan to take advantage of the increase in buck movement that always comes at the end of the breeding phase. They will spend the next 10 days hunting Caleb's best farms. Those public land stand sites that Josh worked so hard to find will not go empty, however. Young Max Mongrello, Josh's intern and primary cameraman, will now take over the hunting duties. Max has 10 days to fill his first ever Iowa bow tag and has gotten off to a great start, seeing 2 solid shooters on the 22nd. As Max and Jared have shown, mature buck movement is definitely picking up. The does are mostly bred now, and the mature bucks that were locked down a week ago are cruising again. The rut's second peak of movement lacks the intensity we saw in early November. There is very little chasing now, but it makes up for it in consistency. The mature bucks are now dividing their time between looking for does and feeding. That means that the action once again moves toward the food sources, and at least some of it takes place in daylight. I've been waiting 2 weeks for this transition. Often my best hunting takes place after the peak of breeding, from November 20th through the 26th. Sometimes it lasts even longer. I saved my cornfield hunting spot for just this event and went in for my first post-breeding hunt on the 22nd. It was definitely a hunt to remember. Unfortunately, we don't have the space in today's episode to bring you all the action from that hunt, but it is enough to say that the lockdown on my farm is officially over. If you want to watch the events from my November 22nd hunt, you can check it out on the daily video blog pages, and I will bring you the highlights next Monday here on the weekly show. These stories and more will continue to unfold right here every week. We appreciate you joining us on this journey. We will see you right back here again next week for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail, and remember to always dream big.
He kind of fell off the radar a little bit, but sweet November, you never know.
How quick things can change in November. We were just getting ready to pack up. Had my bow at the base of the tree.
If you remember back a couple of weeks, I was talking about a one-eyed buck that had a messed up rack. Big old mature deer. That was him. Coming into November felt the same as did the arrival of Christmas vacation when we were young, a time of expectation, enthusiasm, and celebration. The weather has been perfect, and the action followed suit. Let's begin with Jared Mills' awesome hunt from November 1st. Taking a break from the pursuit of the giant mystery buck he's been hunting, Jared gives his full attention to the farm he and Mike Reed own.
Alright, sweet November. It's here and it's hard to believe. We're set up on Mike and I's farm in a really cool spot back in the peninsula. We haven't hunted this stand since 2017. As you can see, we got some nice snow from yesterday, making it a lot easier to see throughout this peninsula, see deer moving through. Once again, the primary target is Merino. He's historically spent a lot of time moving through this little block over my right shoulder, so just hoping we can lay our eyes on him for the first time this year. Man. That buck is on that doe hard. He keeps stopping to run off another buck. Slide your right knee. Man, what a morning. It has been chaos in here, for lack of a better term. I mean, I don't know if the video's gonna do it justice, but Grant and I, our heads have been on a swivel all morning, deer running everywhere. That's a buck that we were calling Andrew Luck. Didn't expect him to see him back here, but I mean, he's down 60 yards away. He came running through too quick earlier. I didn't know if we were going to get another chance. Luckily, he came back. He's a cool buck. We had a lot of velvet pictures of him, and he kind of fell off the radar a little bit, but sweet November, you never know. Man, that's awesome. What a morning. November 1st. All the snow on the ground. That was fun. 0. Kind of blends in with these sticks and the snow. It's gonna be an easy track job with this snow. And look at the range of blood. It's like a 7-foot swath. He's awesome. Sweet frame on him, those long beams. Man, you gotta love November. Grant and I have hunted hard throughout the entire month of October, and all we needed was that calendar to flip a page, and we were able to put a buck on the ground November 1st. And what a morning it was, just your classic cold November rut morning. This deer was actually a surprise when he first showed up on camera this summer. To our knowledge, Mike and I don't have any history with him, but we were getting him very regularly in velvet this summer and late into the summer too. And then after he shed his velvet, we were still getting some pictures, and we thought we were going to have a really good chance at him early season, and we thought we had a good setup for him. But then he just disappeared, and we weren't getting any pictures of him. We thought maybe with crops coming out he'd come back in, but he didn't. We got maybe a couple pictures right on the edge of the farm, but that was it. So to see him this morning was a surprise as well. Grant spotted him from, I don't know, 150 yards out, messing with some does. Like I said, I can't say it enough, just your typical November rut morning, bucks chasing, cruising, just nonstop action late into the morning, and having mature deer come in to cap it off. It's just hard to beat that. So this is my first buck on my farm, my first time using a landowner buck tag, so that's pretty cool. Now it's time to focus on the big deer and also try to get Grant his first Iowa buck. So that's what we're going to spend our time doing. Obviously a lot of good hunting left ahead of us, so it's hopefully just the beginning of a fun ride. November's here, and it feels good to have a buck on the ground.
The morning of November 1st was snow-covered and beautiful in the central Iowa river bottom timber, a classic rut hunt. Jared wasn't the only member of our team to take a great buck on November 1st. Hunting in eastern Iowa, Warren Dykstra and his son Matt were also enjoying the fresh snowfall and the fast rut action.
Yes! We've been waiting all year for that. That's Muley. We've been hoping and hoping to get on him. We had one encounter with him last year. It's been a wonderful set. Oh, this is so great to finally put my hands on him. We've got history with this buck from last year. We saw him when we were sitting in a redneck out in the middle of the field, came out one night. It was exactly a year ago today. It was kind of funny that it happened exactly a year. But this year, he'd gotten bigger. We knew he was a 4.5-year-old deer. What a beautiful deer. We'd been getting pictures of him on a scrape on the other side of this cornfield. So we knew he was in this area. And then last night on the way to the tree, we saw him chasing a doe. It couldn't have worked out any better. We had does come in and he was chasing does around. He made a scrape. So blessed to be able to do what we get to come out here and do. We couldn't be happier. Thanks for watching Midwest Whitetail.
Warren and Matt have been pro staff members at Midwest Whitetail since almost the beginning. We have followed their ups and downs closely over the years on the Midwest Whitetail Heartland series. It is great to now be able to celebrate with them as their dedication to the sport and to helping other bow hunters pays off with a great buck. Drake Lamb films my hunts and edits my daily video blogs. It is a brutal schedule. Hunt all day, edit all evening, post to the daily blog channels, go to bed, get up early, and do it all again. As we all do, Drake needs time away. What do you suppose Drake does when he gets a couple of days off? Yep, he goes deer hunting. Given the intense grind of November, Drake lost touch with some of the properties he had scouted prior to the season and instead shifted his efforts to one of the small farms he had permission on close to his home. That is where we find him on the morning of November 4th, winging it, hunting stands that he and intern Tyler Niedergall carried in and hung in the dark.
It's about 10:30, and I think we're going to wrap it up for this morning's hunt. It's been pretty slow overall. Saw a couple 2- and 3-year-old bucks, but I think we're going to tear these stands down and walk further down here because it seems like all the deer have been working that edge of the creek. And so probably the next time we come and hunt that, we'll be right there, kind of where they're all congregating right there. It's a sweet farm. It's probably my favorite farm that I have permission on this year. just a bunch of wooded draws and just rolling hills of CRP. I think it's gonna be a good spot. We just gotta keep learning it, and I think we'll eventually run into a mature buck. Crap, Tyler, deer right here, right here. I gotta get my bow back. This one's bigger. I might shoot that deer. Come down here, I'm gonna shoot it. I know. Matt. Yeah, go ahead.
Dang it. He jumped that arrow. I gotta get another one in him. Oh my gosh. I think he ducked my arrow pretty good. But I got a second arrow in him real quick, and he's done now. But man, it just goes to show how quick things can change in November. We were just getting ready to pack up. Had my bow at the base of the tree. 3-year-old came in. We just happened to look down to the right, and here came this big buck. I mean, he wore me out right there. I mean, he's probably stood there for like 5 minutes. We got public land up to our north. Big creek bottom back here behind us. And it's just a perfect funnel. This ridge dumps off right here. All these big draws and stuff, everything kind of funnels down into this little creek bottom, and that was our point coming in here. We're just like, well, it's a good funnel, you know. But man, that's awesome. I'm ready to go down and go get it.
What a tank. Alrighty, well, we just got him tagged up, cleaned up, and drug up the hill here. And like I said, I could not be more happier to wrap my tag around this buck. This is what we live for in November 4th. So as far as tags for me, I've still got another Missouri buck tag that opens up, I think, November 22nd, something like that. So I could get back down there and maybe make a few hunts before the season ends. If not, December 18th, I think, is when late muzzleloader starts here in Iowa. So I'll definitely have another tag, and hopefully, we can get back after some of these deer that I've got on camera, and maybe a surprise buck or two along the way. But either way, awesome way to close out my bow season. Couldn't be happier, and just looking forward to late season.
With these great hunts to serve as inspiration, the rest of us keep the accelerator mashed to the floor. Josh Honeycutt, who spends most of his time in Kentucky, made a brief trip to Ohio where he encountered a great buck.
Well, albeit brief, we just had an encounter with the tall 9 here in Ohio. When I first saw him, he was actually on a neighboring property, and then he got a lot closer and kept getting closer and kept getting closer, and finally made it onto us. We're gonna stick with it. They're obviously doing their thing. It's that time of year, and it's the time of year we all live for.
Unfortunately, circumstances back home forced Josh to cut the trip short. Back in Kentucky, Josh has struggled to find any of the good bucks he watched during the summer. Hunting in southern Iowa, Owen Riegler has also been struggling more than usual. Starting off the month of November targeting the ancient buck he calls Digits, Owen goes back to the walnut tree stand he hunted so often last season while pursuing another giant, one that he eventually tagged. Digits hasn't been nearly as visible as that buck, at least not yet. Owen's other top target is a deer he calls Picket Fence. This buck has been giving Owen fits. He is still active in the area, but never when Owen is on stand. The hunt for Picket Fence is the very definition of cat and mouse. There is still plenty of season left, and it is likely that before it is done, Owen and one of these two bucks will eventually be in the same place at the same time. Josh Sparks and Max Mongrello continue their pursuit of mature bucks on public land. As good as the public can be in Iowa, this is still no easy accomplishment. Their journey has taken them across the southern half of the state, from adrenaline-charged highs to discouraging lows. With all the close calls that Josh and Max have had, their trail camera only added to the misery, showing them one more. Little by little, the bow hunters are finding areas that have been overlooked by other hunters, and this endless search eventually brings them to a spot that they can only access by boat. The effort pays off with multiple encounters on the very first sit. Josh and Max are getting close now. With this new area and the fact that the pressure from other hunters is starting to drop off, it is very likely that we will see grip and grin photos from these two very soon. If you remember last week's episode, we all shared in the celebration as Mike Reed shot his biggest buck to date. After that exciting hunt, Mike shifted his efforts to his farm, where he tried to find the giant-bodied buck he calls Sherman. With the disappearance of this brute, Mike heads back to the river farm, where he encounters a huge buck. Though Mike passed up the great non-typical, hoping he survives another season, he has second thoughts. Their farm is not big, and no one else in that area is going to pass up a buck like that. To take his mind off the dilemma, Mike heads to the urban zone near his eastern Iowa home, an area where he has seen and tagged some very good bucks over the years.
I keep seeing different deer, I think. I am working all day tomorrow, but we'll be back out on Tuesday, and we'll definitely be spending some time going after Merino. Sherman seems to have disappeared off the cameras. I haven't had him on camera for the last 11 or 12 days, so I'm going to focus on Merino until Sherman maybe shows back up, and I'll continue to bounce between those two deer.
Since returning from my home turf in northeast Iowa, I've been enjoying action-packed hunts, highlighted by an encounter with an old buck I have called the tube buck on Tuesday morning. I followed that the next morning with a very close call on another old-timer, a buck with a blind eye and a messed-up rack that slipped away by the skin of his ground-down teeth.
Here comes that one-eyed buck. That's a shooter. Are you on him?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, we're screwed.
Alright, I can see him.
I've got no more shots. That was the buck. That was the buck that we came in here trying to find. If you remember back a couple of weeks, I was talking about a one-eyed buck that had a messed up rack. Big old mature deer. That was him.
But I have an ace in the hole. There's a 9-acre field of standing corn on the farm that I haven't hunted. I've been saving it for the tail end of the rut, when the bucks are worn down and looking for much-needed energy. That is when and where I believe my payday will come. I will keep hunting other spots, but I'm not going to be overly disappointed if this coming week doesn't produce a filled tag. I believe my best days are still ahead. Our teams enjoyed many other successful hunts this past week. We just couldn't fit them all into this weekly episode, but you can watch them on the Midwest Whitetail regional channel on YouTube or by going to the MidwestWhitetail.com website. As good as this past week was, there will likely be a letdown as we approach the middle of November, the infamous lull in the rut. The clock is certainly ticking for many of our bow hunters as their vacation time and the best days of the rut slip by, and opening day of the firearm season looms ahead. The rut is always a race against time, as those who are still holding tags try to make the most of each precious day. Now it is all about finding the does, hoping that one of them is in estrus. Find that doe, and you will think there is a buck behind every bush. If not, you may wonder if there are any bucks left in the whole county. These stories and more will continue to unfold right here every week. We appreciate you joining us on this journey. We will see you right back here again next week for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail, and remember to always dream big.
I've got a little small food plot here where I think I can hopefully get a crack at that 8-pointer that Drake filmed back in early August. I'm sure he's an old enough deer. He's got a big body, real massive rack. He's a cool buck. Right now, he's the #1 buck on my list.
I thought he was just a 3-year-old earlier in the trail cam pictures, but I think I might be wrong about that deer. That's not one that I have history with. Other than this year, I don't know him. He's got an awful lot of belly on him for a 3-year-old.
The primary rut is over now throughout most of the upper 2/3 of North America. It left a path of success in its wake for the Midwest Whitetail teams. October and November were our best ever. We killed a lot of really solid bucks this year. Looking back, buck activity was very strong throughout the second half of October and stayed good through the first week of November. Our production dropped off sharply after November 10th and only started to pick back up again after most of the does had been bred and the mature bucks were back on the move. November 20th through the 26th is often the very best time to catch an old buck in daylight. Combining the tail end of the rut with the transition back to food can be magic. That was the success formula for both me and Owen Riegler. I've been talking for the past several weeks about the 9-acre cornfield on my farm and how it figured into my hunting plan. I hoped that once the rut wound down, the deer would be heading to this high carbohydrate food source to fuel back up for the winter ahead. A little leftover testosterone and a lot of hunger should equal late rut opportunities. With that in mind, I headed to that cornfield on the evening of November 22nd. The hunt hasn't been too bad so far. There's about 45 minutes left, and we've seen 3 bucks so far. We've seen the same one that came out when we were here, whenever that was, 4 days ago or so. He's a real nice looking younger buck. Hopefully he survives for a couple more seasons because he's got the potential to be a good one. But it's been, a pretty interesting hunt, and there's still time enough for another one to come out for sure, especially one that maybe has a little bit more age to him. It's 1 year off. I think he's 4, but he could be 3. Sure doesn't look very big there, body-wise. Good. No, I need like one more swap. Here comes the 2 buck.
First we had that wide 8-pointer come in, deer that we've seen a couple of times this season, and then this 8-pointer that we called the tube buck. He came into the opening here and started working his way up toward the blind, and it got really hectic really fast because I had to open my corner window without spooking him as he was coming closer. Plus that big 8-pointer, that wide 8-pointer, was like 5 yards in front of the blind, just going right across in front. And then the front window where Drake was filming out, it was all covered with condensation. So we were trying to figure out how to squeegee that without spooking that closer buck. Well, anyway, the bottom line is I got the shot off. So it was not much control to that. We just had to kind of wing it. And the weird thing was I thought the shot was perfect. I mean, it was only 15, 20 yards away. The arrow hit, to me, looked perfect, but he didn't go down right away. He went out into the corn and laid down. So the bucks must be starting to get away from the does now, because that's 2 mature bucks. That's a 4-year-old and a 5+ in the corn tonight with no does around. So they must be finally starting to break free from the does. Well, we're going to gather up our stuff and sneak out of here, and then we'll come back and recover the steer in a couple hours.
So we're trying to figure out, I thought this was the tube buck, but the tube buck had a sticker point on his right G2, and this one doesn't. And the more we got to looking at it, the more we started thinking it's that big 8-pointer that Drake filmed back in the summer. That's the deer that I've been after the whole season. And he finally showed up, and I didn't even recognize that it was him. So 2 surprises in one season. One was the surprise buck, and the other one was shooting one that you thought was a different deer and then being surprised later to find out that it was the one that you've been after all season. Tyler's going to come out, and then we're going to run out there and grab that deer. Hopefully he's laying right where we last saw him bed down. There he is. Golly. He didn't go very far. Probably 50 yards total. Look at that. Oh, man. 2 surprises in one season. We'll definitely take it. This is the buck that Drake filmed him in early August, and we had a lot of footage from the year before in August, from summer of 2018. And I figured he was 4 years old in 18 and putting him prime age for this year. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, he was the deer we wanted to get. You know, he's a 5-year-old buck, and you know, we're always trying to manage for 5-year-old and older on this farm whenever possible, and so he was the perfect candidate. Owen Riegler missed the middle of the rut as he headed to his boyhood home in Michigan to tend to some family matters. When he got back to Iowa, the bulk of the rut was past. His best late rut hunt shook out a little bit differently from mine. Owen was hunting back in the cover on the morning of November 25th, hoping to catch a buck making a final swing through the nearby doe bedding areas before calling it quits on the rut's main event for another year.
Well, hopefully you guys can hear me. I forgot my wireless this morning. Beautiful morning. It's in like the mid-30s. Right now we've got a southwest wind which is carrying back into this. Well, some TSI stuff that I hinge cut, try to get them not to use it. But we're up here after that picket fence buck. He was in here a lot last year this time of year, but this year he's been, well, you can see that hillside of corn over there. He's been over there more so, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him up here at all. This is where I found his sheds, right here on this hill. So we'll see how it goes. We'll sit in here for a little while, watch the sunrise, hopefully see some deer. asshole. Joe seen that deer moving down there in the brush, and he got into those cedars on us. And we waited a few minutes, and we weren't sure what buck it was, so I hit the horns. It was just one step at a time. He's like 8 yards right there. That's a buck we've seen a couple of times. I have no history prior to this year, but we determined he was a mature buck that we wanted to take out of here, so yeah, finally on the board.
Hey, happy birthday.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Today's my birthday. That's a birthday buck. Yeah, sure enough. Well, my arrow's just right here. Let's grab that. And we heard him crash just down the hill, not far, so let's go take a look at him. That's the way we like to see him. Well, he's lodged under that log right there. He made a heck of a commotion. This is some of that area we TSI'd here as well. Man, has he ever rutted up. Today, let's see if we can get him moved out of here a little bit. We'll get a tag on him first and we'll drag him out of here. I definitely think he's a mature buck. Look at the old melon on him. Decent mass down on the bases. Pretty cool split G2 right there. And I don't know where this deer came from other than this year. I have no history with this buck. We just seen him the other day out of that redneck blind, and we knew it was one we wanted to target. And matter of fact, yesterday I spent all that time looking through my trail pictures trying to really put an age on him, and I didn't find a single picture that looked like it was him. But at any rate, it was definitely one we wanted to target, and on this farm especially, if I can shoot a deer that's mature, then I'm a happy camper. That's what we want to do. And these guys especially, I'm a management guy, so anytime I can take out a deer like that, I'm real happy. So, and it's my birthday today. I just had a couple of days to hunt, and a lot of you guys know that my mom's not doing well, and so it's nice to get to go back and spend some more time with her and regroup, and we'll be back hopefully for shotgun season. We'll see how it goes, but definitely a beautiful day to be out, and a beautiful buck.
After taking the old warrior, Owen still had a second buck tag in his pocket and was back in the field moving a tree stand just 2 days later. That was when he heard something that set in motion a second great adventure.
He wants to kill him. Wrap it around the tree, Joe. There you go. You got him. Now we got to get rid of the rope. Hated to put them through all that stress, but they were not going to come apart. They were going to lay there and die otherwise. So kudos to Joe. Hey, don't try that at home. That's dangerous, but I couldn't sit there and let them die like that.
Now it is time to catch up with the rest of our team. When we last left Jared Mills, he was hunting a giant 10-pointer on the fringe of a big picked cornfield. Since that last encounter, when the buck nearly came all the way into Jared's calls before picking up his scent, Jared has changed his focus back to the river farm. On November 29th, Jared's efforts were rewarded when the top buck on that property stepped from the cover.
That's merino. Yeah, that's merino. Alright, I'm gonna cry.
leave him alone. Well, that's pretty cool. That is our first encounter with Merino since 2017. He was around the property last year, but we never encountered him. So it was awesome to see him again. We believe he's 6.5 years old, just a brute of a deer. We'll be back out after that deer, I'm sure, hopefully sometime before the Iowa shotgun season rolls in next weekend. So we've basically got a little less than a week to try to get it done between hunting that deer and the other deer that I've been having encounters with. Hopefully I can close the deal on one of them within this next week.
Jared has another week to bow hunt this great buck before Iowa's regular firearms season opens, putting an end to all bow hunting for 16 days. Now the story moves to poor young Max Mongrello, the Georgia intern who only recently got his Iowa residency. With Josh Sparks now hunting with his friend Caleb Greiner, Max has been exploring the Iowa public land mostly alone. Unfortunately, Max learned two things very well. First, he learned how hard it is to self-film a good deer hunt without messing things up. Second, he learned how painful it is when the thing that you mess up is the biggest buck you have ever seen.
I don't think there are even words for moments like that. I mean, that's the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life. Came right to the base of the tree. Like, unbelievable. When I drew, I stopped him and drew. When I drew, I bumped the camera. So I had to look down, make sure that he was still in frame. And he was. So I let one rip. And in all that confusion, I never saw this downward hanging limb that's at 15 yards. And it hit that limb and knocked my arrow straight down under him.
Like Jared, Max isn't done yet, but unfortunately his sightings on the public land have dried up since that bad luck day when his arrow ticked a branch and missed his dream buck. As mentioned, Josh Sparks spent Thanksgiving week hunting with his friend Caleb Greiner. Unfortunately, the best opportunity of the week occurred on November 25th, when Caleb was in the tree self-filming, waiting for Josh to arrive. Caleb elected to pass the buck, but it was definitely one that Josh would have loved to shoot if he could have gotten there only a few minutes sooner. The next day, November 26th, Josh and Caleb rattled in a good buck, but at the last second he jumped a fence and came in on the other side, on a property the two didn't have permission to hunt, so they had to stand by and watch him leave. Their final encounter of the week came on the next day, November 27th, when an old buck passed out of bow range and refused to come closer when Caleb snort-wheezed at him. Finally, it is time to catch up with Mike Reed. When we last left Mike, he was reduced to a single buck tag, this one for the urban zone near his home. Despite logging a good number of hours over the past week, Mike has not seen any mature bucks. His trail camera tells him there are still a few around, so Mike will stick with this unique style of hunting until the late season arrives in the end of December and brings with it another statewide buck tag. That's it for our week. It was good by all accounts, but now things are changing. 3 things will dictate our success from now until the end of the season. First is a good food source. Second is cold weather. And third is relatively unpressured deer. You don't need all 3 of these to line up to kill a good buck, but you do need at least 2 of the 3. We still have a lot of tags, and we are staking our hopes on the best food sources we can find. That's where the deer will be, fueling up for the winter ahead. These stories and more will continue to unfold right here every week. We appreciate you joining us on this journey. We will see you right back here again next week for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail, and remember to always dream big.
Hey y'all, thanks for watching the best of Midwest Whitetail. I put a link down here below to see more of this great content, plus other shows on Realtree 365. Thanks again for watching.
That's another bigger buck. They're all coming this direction. Dude, what deer is that? Dude, that's Prodigy. Yep, get on him. Alright, let's see if they square off here. They don't want to mess with him. Guy's ears bent back. Well, we just got back to the truck, and that ended up getting pretty exciting there towards the end. That's a buck we're calling Prodigy right now, and I know probably every viewer we have is going to think we're pretty crazy for passing that deer. He's all over 200. He's for sure in the 190s. We know he's not older than 4. You know, we're not in a big co-op. I think that if our neighbors end up encountering him, he will end up getting shot, but pretty cool. He put on a show for us. He came in from probably 200, 250 yards and raked that tree and got the canary grass all on his antlers right there in front of us at 35 yards. So they actually were all coming off of the neighbor's ag field right by the road. The cars were passing, they were slowing down. There's one guy that came back and forth a few times and ended up running in towards us and giving us a chance to get a good look at him. So that was pretty cool. No merino tonight, and tomorrow morning I plan on getting back in here. I need to figure out which stand I want to go to, but he's still my main target on this farm, and we're going to keep game planning for him.
As we rolled through the first week of November and into the second, the number of bucks falling to our arrows dropped off. The mature bucks are tied down with does now, making sightings much harder to come by. But this is not to say that we drew a blank. Far from it. In fact, 3 of the best stories we have ever told at Midwest Whitetail came together during the past 10 days. We will start with Mike Reed's hunt from the River Farm on November 5th. In last week's episode, Mike passed up a giant non-typical buck that he and Jared Mills decided was still fairly young. After passing it, the 2 bow hunters had second thoughts, deciding it was a big mistake to let a deer like that go in a pressured area. But this is more than just the story of killing a 200-inch buck. The real hunt started after Mike released the string. Tuesday, November 5th. Jake and I are set up for the morning hunt. It's a beautiful morning. It's about 28 degrees or so. We have a light northwest wind, high pressure, clear skies, heavy frost. And we are set up on Jared and I's farm. We're back in this skinny pinch spot between the slough and the river, where I encountered merino a couple years ago. And it's just a great rut spot. I think a lot of deer that work off of our peninsula work through this little strip of timber along the river bend here. We haven't seen any deer yet.
My primary target is merino. Hoping for some good action this morning. It's a 3-year-old. And there's a spike behind him. 4-point behind him. Well, it's 9:30, and it has been a very slow morning, and we just had our first couple bucks cruise by the pattern that we're hunting. 2 young bucks, and I'm hoping that we'll start seeing a little more of that here as the morning we start seeing a little more of that activity as the morning progresses. You know, some of that late morning cruising, and we get one of these mature bucks, particularly merino, to come by.
Should have been there somewhere
He's right there. He's right there. He's right there. Oh, I cut him in the back. That there's a giant. Holy cow. Dude. He comes into 17 yards. That is a deer that I've been on the fence about shooting, which is crazy to think. I actually passed him a couple nights ago. We had him coming in from, we were hunting in the wetland, and he came in from 200 yards across the field, and I passed him at 35 yards. I think that deer's 200 inches. I just shot a coyote right before we heard him grunting and running over here. We had a coyote coming from out of the peninsula, and I just shot the coyote and knocked another arrow, and we were talking about it, and I hear grunting, and I was hoping it was merino. He comes in grunting, chasing this doe right here to 15 yards. I got to pass through. I think I shot him a little bit back, but I was a little bit worried with how high up I am. I didn't want to shoot him in the shoulder blade. That's pretty crazy. All right, got blood immediately on impact. He's spraying in here. Blood here, blood up on the tree. It makes sense that he went around that way. Oh yeah.
Your whole arrow was over there though.
Yeah. That's the other guy's arrow. Your arrow? Oh, that might be the coyote.
Oh, dude.
Been checking the coyote the whole time?
I doubt it. I mean, we've been on his blood trail, but they both ran in this direction. Drama. Where did the trail turn? Back in the sand over there? We've had good blood the entire way. It's definitely some lung blood. I mean, there's bubbles in it. It's bright red. The shot was back, a little bit farther back than I would have liked, but there's no stomach contents on the arrow. But we did just get to the first bed. And It's 2 o'clock, so I shot him 4.5 hours ago. He's down and floated away. What in the world? We're about 40 yards from the first bed, and there's a second bed, and the blood trail goes into the river. So we're all pretty surprised. I mean, the shot's back a little bit, but the blood trail looks double lung, and it is the back of the lungs, but it's pretty surprising he's gone this far, and then for him to get in the river is pretty concerning. So I'm going to work on getting access to the neighboring property owner, and we're going to see if we can pick up the blood trail on the other side, or see if he tried to go across and then changed his mind and came back. We're going to walk down the bank here and see if we can pick up any sign. But man, that looks like a deer. I think his rack would be sticking out. We need a boat, Jakey boy.
Come on, J-Rod. Have some good luck, homie.
Oh, dude.
Look at his head.
He's tight. He's under there. Just concluding the saga of the prodigy buck, and what a saga it has been today. I couldn't be happier. He's such a beautiful deer, and it's really exciting to knock down such a great buck with archery tackle. I hope the video can do justice, and it's one I won't soon forget. Thanks for watching Midwest Whitetail. Well, we're having a heck of a season so far, and for those of you that have followed along, you've heard me mention Jake's name a few times. He's one of our interns at 41 North, and he's been working hard filming me all year. Well, he was able to get out on his own hunt the other day on public land, and he had a great hunt, and he was able to get a shot at a mature buck.
That doe just moved off, but it's the morning of November 8th, and we're back in the same tree we've been hunting the last couple sits here. I've had great action every time I've been in here. The deer move through here well. And as the morning goes on, I expect these deer to filter back into these ridges to bed. And with that, I think the bucks are going to come through here as well. There's a couple heavy doe trails down here. These bucks ought to cruise across these ridges. We're going to sit tight. I think it's going to be an all-day affair. And just hope that we can have a mature buck cruise within bow range. And if not, it's dead quiet, so we got a call from a ways off this morning.
Me.
Public land. Here in Iowa. Man, I've been looking forward to that for so long. We've had great activity all day. These bucks have been out cruising. It's November 8th, and I forgot my grunt tube at home, and so I snort-wheezed them with my mouth, and man, he turned on a dime and came right up in here. He went 10 yards and went down right in front of me. That's unreal. That's awesome. Dude.
Oh, what?
He's dead right there. Dude. Thanks, man. I'm pumped. He's a good deer. I know, right? I knew it was gonna happen. I was like, just gotta stay. I'm so cold. I might just like zip down the lake and grab you in the boat. All right. Well, it's 1:04, and it's about 2 hours after I shot my buck. I had to leave to go grab the boys to help me out, and we're back here now. So we're just on the spine of the ridge here. The buck is laying up there on the spine about 50 yards away from us here, and we're gonna go up there and get him and recover him. All right, well here we are, November 8th, and we got him drug up here for you guys to take a look at him. I haven't had much time to hunt these past couple weeks. I've been super busy filming Mike and just really enjoying the internship here. And me and Mike have strung together a couple really solid hunts these past couple weeks. This spot in particular, I've been accessing by boat. I actually brought my boat down from New York and scouted a couple spots in the summer and decided this was going to be one of them we're going to hunt. Had some really solid hunts here the last 3 weeks. Made 3 hunts here, and today was nothing short of special. Hunt of a lifetime, and he's a really cool deer. He's just about my biggest deer to date. He's got a lot of really cool character. You can check out his burrs on his bases and all the way up his brows. They're just covered in burrs. He's got a cool kicker off his G2, bladed G2. The grain of his antlers is beautiful, and just a really cool deer and a really special deer to me, being that it's the first buck I've taken here in Iowa with a bow. As I mentioned earlier, it's November 8th, and there's plenty of good hunting ahead of us. Max and Josh are hunting not far away from here and have had plenty of good encounters and are definitely getting close. The whole team's out in full force, and bucks are starting to hit the ground left and right. I just couldn't be any happier to be sitting behind this buck today, and we're gonna get him drug out here down to the boat and get him out of here. It's been a heck of a day, and now it's time to celebrate.
Mike's giant non-typical was the 3rd buck to come from his and Jared's River Farm, starting with the great deer Mike shot in late October, followed by Jared's classic snow-covered rut hunt from November 1st, and finally culminating with this tremendous buck. That takes us through the first 2 great stories from the past 10 days. The third one is the long-awaited conclusion of Jared Mills's hunt for the famed mystery buck. Yes, we are finally going to see this giant.
Well, it's a frigid, cold morning here in Iowa, November 12th, and unfortunately I had too much work to do to get out in the woods. But while I was in my office working, I got the text from my buddy that he killed this big deer that we've been hunting. He killed him on an adjacent property. And of course it's bittersweet news. You know, you put a lot of time and energy into hunting one specific deer, and you hope that story ends the way you envision it. But honestly, this is the second best ending to the story that I could hope for. My buddy has put in just as much time and effort into hunting this deer as I have, and he certainly deserves it. He's hunted the right way, and it's a heck of a deer. We're actually on our way right now to go congratulate him and see the deer in person, so I'm excited for that. But the cool part about this story is we've shared trail cam pictures and sightings and all that throughout this journey. And I've been in the industry long enough and have seen a lot of relationships and friendships ruined by big deer. And I'm proud to say this isn't the case with this buck. I'm happy to see how this has transpired all the way through. And like I said, he deserves this one for sure.
I knew my chances weren't great, but I was just like, I just got to put the time in. And
you did, for sure.
He came through probably 80 yards south. And I wouldn't have seen him, but he crashed through some ice. And I looked over and I'm like, oh, like that is him. It's got to be his huge. I mean, I couldn't see him very good, but I could just see antlers. And gave him 2 doe bleats. And,
really?
And that was it.
How far?
20 yards.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm glad that's all it was.
Man, he's awesome. That mass is incredible. So cool. He's a heck of a deer.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Nice work, man.
We brought you just the short version of Mike Reed's incredible hunt for the huge non-typical and Jared Mills' story of the mystery buck here on the weekly episode. If you want to watch both in more detail, please check out the Midwest Whitetail Daily YouTube channel or look for the video blogs on the MidwestWhitetail.com website. The remaining members of our team have continued to hunt hard. Owen Riegler finally had a close encounter with the big-bodied buck he calls Picket Fence. Unfortunately, family issues have pulled Owen away for an undetermined amount of time. We pray for his situation and look forward to the day when he is back in the stand. Josh Honeycutt continues to grind in Kentucky. We left him last week still searching for mature bucks. Now it seems as if his luck will never change. Losses to EHD could be to blame, but this has been Josh's slowest season in the past 10 years. Josh Sparks and Max Mongrello have continued to encounter good bucks on public land, with a very close call this past week when a solid shooter slipped right through their fingers. Josh is looking forward to the coming week when he plans to take a break from the public land and spend several days hunting private land with one of his best friends, Caleb Greiner. Josh expects to spend most of his time behind the camera, but will likely get to hunt as well. I hunted most of the last week without a mature buck sighting, but that is not uncommon for me during this part of the season. I'm really looking forward to the next 3 weeks as the rut winds down and the deer start to head back to food. This time period produces much more consistent and predictable action as the final days of the rut see more and more mature bucks on their feet in daylight, searching for that last hot doe. Much of my hope centers around a large cornfield and several smaller big and beastie plots. Most mornings we will still be on the doe bedding ridges, but the evenings will be near food. The second half of November is here already. The days seem colder and grayer now, and the wind calls with a lonelier voice. Most of the bow hunters are either tagged out or have spent their vacations and are back to work. The firearm season isn't open yet, at least not here. This is my favorite time. I have no idea what we're going to bring you next week on the show because that chapter has not yet been written. Our stories, those of us that are still hunting, will continue to unfold right here every week. We appreciate you joining us on this journey. We will see you right back here again next week for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail, and remember to always dream big.